Hi, Scott. Thanks for joining us today. How are you going?
Yeah, pretty well, thank you. Good to see
Oh,
you.
yeah, same here. So nice to see you. Been a while.
It has been a while.
Yeah. I was actually thinking about our first time we ever met, Scott, in Chicago. What a week that was.
Was that really the first time we met?
Yeah, 2017 at Chris Murray.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and Jane let you go after she just had Lenny.
Yeah, he's like a month old or something.
Yeah, yeah. That was a good week.
It was a good week. It was a good week.
Um, now, we've been asking our guests about their journey into early learning. Can you share your experience with us?
Yeah, it was pretty random. I fell into it a little bit. So I was in kind of the not-for-profit sector at the time, and doing kind of corporate partnerships and sort of sales, business development sort of work there. And Jane, my wife and managing director of Enrolment Hub, she basically she was working for one of the major providers who had got her into centralise their enrolments team. Back when no one was doing that, when it was only kind of done by centre managers at the time. So she sort of figured out how to do that, wrote policies and procedures around that, and built a team up as they grew. And she did exceptionally well there for about 5 years doing that. And then when she left there, and she consulted doing that with other childcare providers. Same thing around centralising their enrolments team. And then one day she sort of came home and she was like, it'd be great if we could start a business where anyone could access that, have their own team or an own enrolments consultant without having to train and hire and manage and cover them when they're on leave and all that sort of stuff. So she started Enrolment Hub. I was never meant to be a part of it, and and then we wanted to grow a little bit, and we did hire a few different BDMs for the business, but they were ultimately, I guess, unsuccessful. And I was already doing this for other businesses and had done that, so I kind of, stepped in and started doing the business development side for Enrolment Hub. And then, 8 years later, we're still working together, and all we talk about
You're
is
still
kids and
married.
work. Yeah. Somehow we're still married, and we just talk about work and kids. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. No, you guys have done an amazing job. And look, just a bit of background, obviously, is that Scott and I, we actually worked together, right?
Yeah.
Childcare CRM. So it was a
Yeah.
great couple of years there.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. It was good.
It was fantastic. Look, what we're going to talk about today is unlocking efficiency and strategies to release administrative constraints for our approved providers, and right down to obviously our centre managers and educators, which are where the work is done.
Yeah.
You mentioned in preparation for the episode that owners and centre directors are like handcuffed to their administration desk. Can we go through what those shackles would look like?
Yeah, I mean, they're ultimately running big businesses, right? They've got so many balls in the air. They've got a lot of staff, and then they've got to manage those staff. They've got to do rostering. The phones are ringing all the time. Those phone calls are really important for the ongoing success of the centre, but also the owners of those centres are also, it could be a $20,000 or $30,000 phone call that. So they've just got so much going on. There's a lot of administration and legislative tasks that they have to do around, all manner of things, which, you guys obviously know they're at one place as well. But,
Yeah.
and they're often stuck to their desks, or they're doing really long hours trying to get this, get back to people after hours, or, and these days with staff shortages, they're often caught onto the floor as well. So they're on the floor, the phone's ringing, they're trying to manage their staff, they've got families coming in. I mean, it's just too much. It's not fair to expect them to be able to do that well.
Yeah.
So
And what you're talking about here is driving occupancy, right?
yeah, I mean,
Without occupancy, you don't have a business.
ultimately it has to be to be profitable, and it's not their main focus a lot of the time, because their main focus is their staff, their families, their children, which is how it should be, which is exactly where we fit in. So the idea is that we can partner with that centre manager, and take away a lot of that back end administration, stop the phone from calling so much, handle those families. And if we can do that really well, so that first impression is really consistent and really professional and, loving and done really well from a family point of view. So they're moving through in the background without the centre manager even really knowing a lot of the time until they do the tour, etc. And then the centre manager can be the face of that service and greeting families, managing staff, managing that big team and being the face of that centre. Then it's a perfect marriage. And you can really watch that centre take off at that point where both those sides are being taken care of really, really well.
Absolutely. And even right down to the administrative tasks that it removes. Like I always remember in services, and I'm sure our educators and centre managers will agree to this, is the amount of sticky notes with people's names and phone numbers on them that they don't even have opportunity to get back to, not realising that lead might have 2 or 3 children to come through that centre or even one child, right? And as we know, families move on really fast, right?
Yeah. So if they can be doing that front, which is a perfect point, because if they can be keeping their families and the children happy and really minimise how many people will leave the service, but then on the other front, especially with staffing at the moment, be keeping their staff engaged and happy and motivated and really driving that team culture because they're on the floor and they're able to do that. So they're stopping the turnover of staff as well. And then we can be keeping families happy in the background and moving them through and growing that occupancy. Then it's a great recipe, to keep that centre full, which is ultimately what owners are after. But like I said, the children and the families and the staff and should be the centre manager's main focus.
Absolutely. Can I ask you, because I know Enrolment Hub, right? I know you guys very well.
Yeah.
What really, what is the time? What time does it take for someone, say, at a service level who's not using Enrolment Hub or not looking at outsourcing or centralising those enrolment teams? What time frame could it often take a centre manager to answer a phone compared to what it would be if you had that support in that back end?
Well, I mean, we just on the enrolment piece, we worked out we can save them about 8 hours a week in just on the enrolment part of the phones, and then there's roughly 16 touch points per enrolment, whether it's phone calls, texts, emails, going back and forward, chasing documentation, and the enrolment forms, all the rest of it. So it's roughly on average 16 touch points to get someone from an inquiry through to enrolled. But then, we also do the accounts, and do statement inquiries, and if there's debt issues and families not paying, we'll chase them up and put them on payment plans, and that requires a lot of consistency and touch as well. So that's
very stressful as well.
Yeah, and it comes back to that relationship piece again. So if you're the centre manager and you've ultimately got into childcare to manage, to look after children, and you love that side of it, which you should be passionate about, and they are.
Yeah, they are.
Then someone doesn't own, someone owes you money, then it can be a really difficult conversation to have with someone. Please drop your child off, and of course I'll look after them, but you've got to pay us to do that, So if they can have a third party, still being really empathetic and everything with that family, it's obviously times aren't always easy, but having that consistency to follow that up and not coming from a centre manager who's also looking after their child, then that can be a much easier way to keep that relationship there for the families and the parent.
Absolutely, and also you'll find like you were saying, the centre managers to talk to families about a debt, because usually it's not something like $20 or $30. We're talking, a couple of thousand maybe.
Yeah, it can rack up really quickly.
Yeah, it could really break down that relationship with that family, because they expect the centre manager to know all their hardships, all what's going on. There could be separations, job losses, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it becomes an emotional attachment rather than just an easy to talk to, taking that emotional bit away.
Yeah, and they can keep that relationship of carer and family, and keep the dollars and cents out of it. And we can be that third party that, yes, we're still empathetic, but ultimately you have to pay for the service for your child to be able to attend. So we can have those conversations, still show empathy, like I said, but really keep that consistency there and follow up, making sure that those payments come in on a regular basis, so that family can still attend and they still have that relationship.
And would there be families who are in debt and haven't, where the centre manager hasn't necessarily followed up on that debt, or the admin person, whoever it is that needs to recover that money? Is there families that leave without actually out paying that money back?
Oh,
Is
hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That would be a big loss.
Yeah, totally. And it's obviously much harder to get it back at that point. But I mean, there's services and groups with hundreds of thousands of dollars of that sort of debt sitting there. And we are reasonably successful at getting that back too, or at least some of that back. But ultimately, if you can have that conversation with the family while they're still there and still requiring care, it's so much easier and you're successful.
And take away the centre manager or the admin who knows that family really well. Yeah. Give them the support that they need to get that money back. And obviously, when that money's coming in, your approved provider, owner, manager keeps them happy as well.
Yeah, totally.
Now, we've talked about a few things that, the time to answer phone, the admin time, the debt recovery, supporting those administration tasks. Are we able to look at some of I know we've covered some tactics. Is there anything particular that you'd like to add around that on helping those leaders and those approved providers break free of those tasks?
Look, you're right. A lot of them are, very paper-based, and some of them do it really well. Like, this isn't, to generalise and say that a lot of them, don't like this side of it is not entirely true. Some are very good at it, and maybe they've spent their time on the floor and they do want to some time out and quite enjoy it, and then some of them do it really well. So I don't want to blanket everyone as, but a lot don't. A lot, like you say, doing post-it notes, not finding time to get back to people, and really with a lot of this stuff, consistency is the main probably buzzword, and efficiency and consistency, I guess, is streamlining things with programs. One place, a CRM, a good CCMS that you don't have to, is not so manual. So using consistency and using those platforms, but then having the time and being able to do that over and over again is ultimately where you will succeed. But I mean, it's a lot of it's just a time thing. They don't have the time or the inclination a lot of the time to do it. If they're there, they'll answer the phone. Often they won't take the details of that family. They're lovely on the phone, but you need to be able to call them back again and offer a spot and follow that through. So
and would you say the consistency that you're talking about, the data that each person who answers the phone collects isn't necessarily good data to ring them back, or it's the wrong email, or they've missed a letter, or something that causes the person or the centre manager to ring back not able to do that?
Yeah, 100%. But in their defence, they're often on the floor, they're often in a room. They've got children around them, and they're answering a phone, and they're trying to be as helpful as they can, but it's a nearly impossible task, right? So
and they've also got to keep in ratio, right? They've also got to do all that compliance, all those regulations that they must do to minimise risk and keeps children safe, right? That's their number one reason of being in there as part of our legislative requirements.
Yeah.
But I know I ring up services, and what I see myself is sometimes no one answers.
Yeah.
No one answers.
Yeah, a lot.
Or you leave a message, no one rings you back for 3 or 4 days. They don't know who I am or what I'm ringing for.
Yeah.
What impact does that have?
Families are then just calling, like they might have 2 or 3 in their area that they want to go and see. And if it goes through to the voicemail, or it just rings out, or they answer but they don't really have time to answer your questions, they're going to call the next one. And if they give them that a different, if they can get them through and tell them, answer all their questions on the spot, get them booked in for a tour. They're halfway there to having that family.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I was using something like Enrolment Hub as a centralized enrolment system, you wouldn't have that. I wouldn't have that experience either, right? I would have a much quicker experience.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got quite a big team here now, or have for a number of years, but ultimately we want to answer the phone within 3 seconds. And how
That's pretty quick.
yeah, we answer in your brand, so we're not bouncing around everyone in the team here. You have a dedicated person or team. You have a set phone line for your service, and we answer it in your brand, obviously.
Yeah.
So that family assumes we're either sitting at the service or in your head office, in the head office for that centre, and then they call back again. They get speaking to the same person, so they can build relationships with that consultant or that person. As likewise, the centre manager builds relationship. They're often speaking 2 or 3 times a day about transitions that can happen, and this family's here. I've got this offer out. Have you spoken to anyone there? What about this sibling, etc., etc.? There's lots of conversations going on all the time between the centre managers and their person. Like it's the same person each time. So it comes back to that consistency of service.
And then, of course, having that centralised enrolment team, the relationship with your centres would be really important as well, having that with your owners and your centre managers so that everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, definitely. So the owners, we more at management level, we sort of more deal with the owners. They don't typically deal too closely with their consultant. But every week they get a report that gives them a full rundown of everything that's happened that week before. So they know how many calls we had, how many tours were booked, how many offers are out, how many days were gained, current occupancy, future occupancy, like any notes of interest or comments around, we're finding a lot of people are doing this or whatever it is. So, so they're getting a bit of an insight into themes that are happening as well at the time. So they get a real understanding of what's happening at their service on a weekly basis. So then they don't feel like they probably need to be in there or talking to the centre managers potentially as much. And then the centre managers are dealing with the consultants on like I said, often multiple times a day, particularly at the start. But they soon work out how each other like to work, and that flow gets going.
Yeah, no, that's really good. That's fantastic. And the obviously centre managers feeling that support and having that those systems in place, as you're talking about, like One Place or CRM, CCS, and obviously having a decent CCS and a decent operational platforms is substantial to for success.
Yeah, for sure.
As well.
And it just all comes back to, again, the efficiency and consistency. So we are looking to do the same thing effectively. So we take on the policies and procedures of whoever we are. So we don't change how they do work. We just put platforms and processes around it to make it consistent. So if they offer out 3 months in advance, then we will do that for them. If they have to have a Monday and a Friday as their offering, we will do that. Like we're not coming in and saying you have to do it this way. We work how they work, but we just do it in a consistent, processed manner.
And one of the things I know is a big issue for services is marketing around their brand, especially those more, the sort of single sites without that marketing team around them. Is that something that it can be resolved easily, or could that be an issue as well in driving leads?
Yeah, for sure. It's some areas are really competitive, and others aren't. There's certainly a few years ago there seemed like there was just an overabundance of childcare centres in some areas. It was crazy. I mean, we're both in Brookvale, right? And I think there were 17 services in Brookvale at one point. I think it went from 5 or 7 to 17 in 3 years.
Yes.
And then about 5 or 6 of them went bust, and it's back down to a bit more of an even playing field. It just as an example, but we do sort of digital marketing for a lot of services as well. So we manage their social media, their Google ads, SEO, and ultimately drive those leads to our team, who then answer that inquiry and move that family through for that service. So it's kind of a full service suite there. Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. Oh, that's look, the benefits for your service managers to have that pressure gone is huge.
Yeah, it's a funny dynamic. Some really get it straight away. Others are really skeptical about an external or outsourced or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
A bit of a dirty word, outsourced. But team coming in and feeling like they're going to lose control or whatever it is, and it's a really common, normal response. And then they speak to us and our consultants, and they understand that they really get it, and they've done this a lot of times, and a lot of them are from the industry or been centre managers or whatever it is, and it takes a while for that trust to build up.
Yeah.
They can feel like they can let go of that those tasks, and then it's just it's unbelievable. They love it and they're freed up and they
never want them back.
They use all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Oh, don't give them back to me.
Yeah, and we might sit in a room we might take over a group, or for example, and there might be a room of 10 centre managers, and there's 2 or 3 that are really sceptical. And the others are like, "Oh my God, take it! I can't wait." And the others are, and it just takes a little while for them to get that trust of, okay, they do know what they're talking about. They are from the industry and etc. It's not.
And also their families, it's their parents, isn't it? It's like a family thing. And also, it's that whole change and systems changes and trust, like you said.
Yeah.
But it's certainly the support of services is something that really, from a software perspective and an outsourced enrolment perspective, that's what we're there to do. We're there to support those educators, what your service managers, right up to your management level.
Yeah.
And help them out. Make sure they can get as much help as they can, and reduce. Really, what we're doing is reducing that time on an educator.
Yeah, 100%.
And I said, imagine that's not sort of what they're there for.
Yeah, and in most cases, it's not beneficial for the service or for them, and it's not what they want or really should be focusing their time on.
That's exactly right.
They should be focusing on their big team often, and keeping them happy and keeping their families happy, and then it's a huge part in a successful service. Like we've both had children. My youngest is not long out of childcare. But, to walk in there and just see them interact with him straight away and how you going and blah, blah, and how they're talking to you like they know you well because they see you every day, is a huge part of dropping your child off to that service. And if there is a lot of turnover with staff, it makes it so difficult for families and the children to keep wanting to go there.
And also, it is a trust thing again, isn't it? You've got to trust, the families need to trust that the service is doing the right thing. And when there's that change of staff, it's definitely not something that families want to see.
No.
Not that we can make everyone stay, of course, but there's certainly, you can reduce that changeover. And quite often, do you have much feedback from those that do leave about, is it partially administration overburden of that?
It's not really something that we have too much insight into, of the rest of the staff. But I'm sure if that centre manager is freed up and is really active and motivating those staff members more and not in their office, then that can only help.
That's right.
Not get a lot of feedback.
Exactly. Now, what we like to do is ask all our guests, looking forward, what do you see as the challenges for the sector over the next few years?
Yeah, everyone says staffing, and it's not really just childcare. Obviously, it's across a lot of industries, a lot of and even in here, we're finding it's getting easier, and I think it's the same for childcare as well. Like, it seems to be easing, which is great, but getting staff and and managing them, and there has been a big lift in the way people like to work and how many hours they want to work, and
work from home.
And
you can't do that in childcare.
No, maybe 4-day weeks and all sorts of it. So the challenge of that across the board is certainly, I think it's going to be ongoing for a little while yet. But yeah, I mean, if we can help with that back end side and free up those centre managers who, like I said, are often being called onto the floor as well. Hopefully it can ease that a bit as well.
Yeah. And really reducing admin time does help.
Yeah.
Reduce, even if you're short staffed, if they don't have to do 20% of our admin time or 30% of admin time, then you're actually winning there, because all of a sudden you're making the utilising the staff that you have in the best possible way.
Yeah, 100%. In the way that where their skills lie, really.
Yeah. That's what their degree was about, or their diploma.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I don't think they've thrown in sales and marketing yet.
No, for sure.
Now, look, before we finish up, we love to ask our wonderful guests for a personal motto, motivational quote. I call them wise words, that you'd like to share with our audience today. Do you have something?
I don't know about wise words. I think I like the words authentic and accountable. I think if you can be genuine and build rapport with people, but then also take account if something goes wrong or if you're at fault. Most people are really understanding or willing to give you a break or whatever it is if you're upfront, authentic and do take account for things. Like, everyone's human. We no one's perfect. We make mistakes all the time. But I think if you can be on the front foot, talk to people, let them know that this has happened, this is how I'm going to deal with it, to stop it from happening again, or whatever that is. But I think if you can just, be genuine and accountable for whatever it is that you're offering, I think it goes a long way in any industry, but childcare particularly.
Oh, that's fantastic. Actually, that's really nice. We've not had that one at all before.
Yeah.
Where that's broken down to 2 words. That's brilliant. Thank you, Scott.
No worries.
I appreciate it. Now, before we finish up, thank you for your time today. Really appreciate it. What we'll do, if anyone is interested in talking to Scott further, knowing more about Enrolment Hub or what they can help your services with, we'll share all of that when we release the podcast and put that in all in our links as well, and all of your contact details as well, Scott.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Talk to you soon.
See you. Bye.